As the regeneration of Douglas Centre continues, I've been talking to the Douglas Development Partnership about the state of the High Street.
Regent Street is finished, and hopefully everyone thinks it looks a lot better. What's happening now is that the next phase is starting at Howard Street and then working out from Howard Street in both a northerly and a southerly direction.
Which is Howard Street? Can you explain that?
Howard Street's the middle of the three streets that links in with the promenade, really. So we've got Regent Street, which has now been done, then Howard Street, and Granville Street is going to be done as part of this phase as well.
Are you doing Castle Street?
The current scheme is just going down to the beginning of Castle Street at this phase, and then hopefully, although it's not been agreed yet, hopefully the scheme will continue on into Castle Street.
I mean, we've had in the past the shopkeepers and traders in Castle Street say that they often feel quite neglected. They're at the very end there. We were there this morning filming. It does look quite tired.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have had that issue from Castle Street traders before. We've tried to put events on down there, which have brought a lot of people into the area, so the continental markets and those sorts of things. And then, of course, there's the promenade scheme, which is now started and well underway, and that should make it down as far as that part of the street as well, so there'll be kind of improvements either side, really, of Castle Street.
Now, obviously, through the main shopping street here, there's a lot of disruption with the works that are going on. How has that affected traders and shopkeepers, and how have you been able to help them cope with that?
Well, I mean, obviously there's some disruption and people having to be funneled into sort of narrow routes to get past the roadworks. We obviously do get feedback from retailers as it's going past their shops that it does have an effect on trade. But the feedback then from the businesses when it's passed is that it's made the area much better and they're getting favourable comments from customers.
And in terms of the businesses that are using Strand Street, we're still seeing a lot of empty shops down there.
Well, it seems as though there are quite a lot of empty shops. The vacancy rate we monitor now, we've been doing that since June 2012. And actually it's at a relatively low rate still. It's 9.8% at the moment, which is well below the UK average, and particularly the Northwest average. So we're not doing too badly, but also we have communication with the local property agents, and we know that there's a lot of activity sort of beneath the surface. So even the empty units, there are tenants interested in going into those, or there are planning applications in. So hopefully over the next few months we'll see that rate actually go down quite a lot further.
And is that rate, that's a 9.8%, that's empty buildings on Strand Street?
Within the regeneration area, so it's not just Strand Street, it includes places like Market Hill and Duke Street and Victoria Street as well.
And how does that compare to, say, this time last year?
Slightly below what it was this time last year. And one of the things we've seen is we've seen businesses sort of from the outskirts of the town centre, if you like, sort of Chop Shop and Gary Cornell moving into the centre. So there's been a consolidation into Strand Street, really. But we are aware there's a lot of activity with those shops that they've vacated. So hopefully we'll see those occupied before too long.
And as you say, you're trying to bring business into the town. You've had your markets and so on. That's something that will continue. Yeah,
definitely. Events are a really important part of the sort of town centre management initiative. We're trying to create events that make it a much more pleasant and enjoyable environment to be in, but also events that actually generate footfall in their own right. So things like the continental markets bring people into town and then they spend money while they're here.